Hey everyone, welcome again to the BATTASS podcast, the Batman the Animated Series show podcast, where we talk about Batman the Animated Series. My name is Clay McCormick, and with me as always is Sean Murphy. How you doing, Sean?
Oh man, I really like both these episodes, but as I watch the second one, which is called Trial, I always start to remember how much of it's basically White Knight. Like there's so many things in that episode that I hijacked accidentally. Like I feel the need to defend myself when we start talking about that episode.
Yeah, I'll give you the podium to do so, because I would be lying if I said I wasn't thinking the same thing. But we're talking about two episodes today. We're talking about A Bullet for Bullock and The Trial. So we'll take a quick break. We'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about Bullet for Bullock. A Bullet for Bullock, written by Michael Reeves, directed by Frank Power, and in this one, someone has put a hit out on Gotham's toughest cop, Harvey Bullock. After surviving several near misses, Bullock realizes he has no choice but to ask his arch-rival, Batman, to help him discover who is behind the murder attempts. During their investigation, Bullock learns that his gruff and mean-spirited manner has created enemies in the unlikeliest of people, notes. Based on the comic of the same name from Detective Comics number 651, October 1992 by Chuck Dixon. And this episode won the 1996 Daytime Emmy Award for Outstanding Music Direction and Composition, which I did want to mention because the music in this episode was not written by Shirley Walker.
Yeah, I caught that too.
Yeah, it was written by Harvey Cohen, who did, I think, 9 or 10 or 11 episodes of across Batman the Animated Series and the New Batman Adventures. And yeah, the music really stood out to me in this one because it felt a lot like 60s Batman. It was a very kind of like throwbacky 60s jazz kind of thing. That was
they had that like that detective saxophone sound. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah,
like the detective. Yeah,
thing, yeah.
Or like this sadder one. It's sort of a little bit from like a Lethal Weapon, where you have that detective at the end of a long day, sitting down and plopping down at his desk, finding the bottle of whiskey he has hidden, like that kind of music. yeah,
and it was. I was reading that the composer said it was shortly after Henry Mancini died. Henry Mancini is a famous film composer from that era, and so he was a big influence on the music written. It was sort of it was at least in his mind, if not a direct tribute, when he was writing the music. Yeah. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Now the music is the best character in this episode. There's
definitely.
Even a point where they start playing the Batman theme song, like from the show itself, with saxophones and a piano or whatever else they had.
Oh, really? I
didn't catch that. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, and I don't know what version you watched, but the one that I watched had the Adventures of Batman and Robin different intro that has a completely different theme, and the images you're seeing are just clips. It's basically a clip show from previous episodes.
Yeah, it has the with Robin and Batman jumping towards the camera at the very end.
I think so, yes.
Yeah, like falling down from a snowy cliff or whatever.
Yeah.
When did they first start using that opening? Well, is this the first episode? Is that what you're suggesting?
It's 9 out of the 20 episodes of this second season. So this episodes number 65 through 85. Nine of them featured the on-screen title of The Adventures of Batman and Robin, and featured the new music and stuff. Which it's such an odd, like, why? I'm not sure why 9 out of these 20 episodes they chose to do differently. Maybe no, it's not. I thought maybe it was the ones that with the music by Harvey Cohen, but it's not. That seems to not have any.
So are you asking why they would go with someone other than Shirley Walker?
No, I'm trying to figure out why they picked it's seemingly a random 9 episodes of this 20 episode second season to give a different title to the show.
Oh, I see. Sorry.
Yeah, so nine of the episodes have the intro that says The Adventures of Batman and Robin.
Got it. Yeah. So there was there like a decision from the top where they decided to rebrand it? doesn't seem that way because the new intro kind of is intermittent.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe it has something to do with date of airing, because the order that we're watching them in, I believe, is not the order in which they were aired. So maybe the order in which they were aired, these 9 episodes that are now The Adventures of Batman and Robin, were all aired together. And so it's a shift for when they were aired. I don't know. That's probably, if I had to guess, that's probably what it is.
The name of why would they make it so that the number of each episode isn't dictated by the sequence of when it aired?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is that the order number? Like that's the 68th one that we wrote, but we didn't actually get to air it until the 75th episode. It just, who knows? I mean, there's probably simple explanations for this stuff.
Yeah.
It might not be that much of a mystery.
yeah, I don't know. But either way, we're going to be seeing that different introduction intermittently. But yeah, Bullet for Bullock. I really liked the idea of this episode. I don't know if it goes as far as I would like it to, but I do like the idea that Bullock has to reach out to Batman for help because Bullock has so many people that want to kill him that he can't figure out who it is.
Yeah. I have the same takeaway, honestly. This has always been I thought it was one of my favorites because it's such a different episode, and I like the idea of this. Again, if you pitched this to me, I'd be like, that sounds great. But I think where I'd like it to be better is there's 2 things happening. Is this about Bullock being a jerk who's a slob, who bends the rules, who's like 2 steps away from being corrupt? Or is this about how he and Batman are very similar? And I think the second question is probably more interesting, and you can keep the first question. So if this episode is trying to say Bullock is kind of a bad guy he's the sort of the anti-hero who breaks the rules every now and then. He hates Batman, but Batman's willing to help him, and by the end of it, they find out that they have a lot in common. That sounds a little stronger to me, but I don't think they were pushing into that as much as they could have.
Yeah, it seems to be a little bit of both, and ultimately it gets a little muddled, I think.
Yeah.
Because, I find it interesting. I find the first question interesting, but it only works if Bullock makes some sort of, either learns a lesson at the end or doubles down on the way he does things. And
you're right, and he doesn't
do either of those things.
Yeah. And he acknowledges that he bothers his landlord and decides to maybe find a new place. So I don't know what kind of conclusion that is for him.
Yeah, he doesn't come away thinking like, man, lots of people want to kill me. I am not a great person, and I internal affairs is breathing down my neck all the time. Maybe I'm not as good a cop as I thought I was. But it's just sort of, it's very it's a very comical ending. And the second question, Batman and Bullock being very similar, I think that's interesting too. But they never really get into that at all. I was actually that sort of brings up the thing I thought was missing from this episode, which is a scene where Batman and Bullock directly address that, or where Batman directly addresses that, where sort of like a there's a famous issue of The Punisher that's been going around recently, given all that's happening in the world regarding the police and adopting certain symbols of vigilantes and whatnot, where the Punisher pulls the Punisher symbol off of a cop's uniform and tears it up and says essentially like, you and I are not the same. You took an oath to serve and protect, and I like there's a hard line drawn by that character as to why what he's doing is different than what the police are doing. And I think that's important for Batman to acknowledge as well. And he doesn't do that here. And maybe that's too heavy for a kid's show, I don't know. But there's no real moment where Batman is like, no, we're not the same, because I have my job because of people like you. Because you guys don't get the job done, I have to do things the way that I do it.
Yeah, I think I agree with all of what you just said, and I also wish they found a way for them to like work together. Maybe like if Batman had fallen and dropped his batarang, and Bullock had to use the batarang, so symbolically having to do what Batman does, literally with a batarang. That's a little cliche, but something like that, where they kind of silently nod to each other from across the room as they were fighting bad guys. in a way that was like, oh, we're really working together on this, and maybe we're not so different after all. That whole thing.
Yeah, I don't. I don't know if Batman would really like that because he seems to not like Bullock either. he seems to only be helping him because he's a cop that needs help and has got someone out for him.
Right. Well, what would be even more interesting is if Batman and Bullock were teamed up, and Batman, there was a third character, maybe it was like Gordon, who says, "You and Bullock are a lot alike," and Batman's like, "Bullshit! Like I'm not like that guy." And he's even more annoyed by people seeing what he and Bullock can't see.
Right. Well, the character to do that in this episode would be Montoya. Because Montoya...
Oh, my God. You're totally right.
Yeah, Montoya is there, but she's not really doing anything. She's just sort of along for the ride. And she would be perfect for that.
Yeah, and I always found her very interesting, and I was sort of disappointed by how little she had to do in this episode.
Yeah. Do you know when she kind of comes into her own? Does she not come into her own until the comics, really?
Yeah, well, she was created for this episode... Sorry, for this series, and then she was turned into a comic, and she was transferred into comics. Mm-hmm. I think there might have even been some overlap where they created her, DC Comics knew about her, and they actually put her in a comic before the cartoon aired.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
but
I see. Okay.
believe she was created just for this series. And as far as I feel like she comes in her own in POV in season 1.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Like she never really has a really big episode after that, unless there's one I'm missing. And I haven't seen a lot of like Justice League and the other stuff, so maybe she has an episode like that later on, and I'm not aware.
Yeah, most of the stuff that I know, she's sort of a B level, and I don't mean that quality wise, but she's like a B level Harley Quinn for me, where it's like I know her from the show, but I know more about her from the comics. Like, because in the comics, she's, you made her police commissioner, obviously, in Curse of the White Knight. She was the Question for a while. She may still be the Question. I'm not sure. I don't think they mentioned that she's gay in the show, but she's a lesbian in the comics, so that's a big
and Gotham
deal.
Central is a big
Gotham
series
Central,
for her. Yeah, Greg Rucka. It
is just so crazy to me, though, that... They created this character for this show, and then they're like, "Oh, that's a cool character. Let's put it in the comics." It's like, yeah, it's crazy that there's a female cop in Gotham City, isn't it? Like it's this revelation, I guess, to some people that there might be a female cop.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, she was. Again, this universe is my introduction to Batman, so it's always felt very natural for there to be female cops. And obviously there are women cops in real life, duh. But for comics to go as long as they have, and I don't know how bad they were at this. Like, maybe somebody can answer. Like, how many female cops were really in Gotham City Police Department up until the 80s? Because I'm imagining that Montoya was introduced in like 1992 or 93.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that you would have female cops in the background. I mean, like, Neil Adams and a lot of those guys are very progressive, and why wouldn't you? I mean, everyone knows that women are in police departments, so they've got to be in there, but not a main character like Montoya.
Yeah, at least not a recurring character anyway. It doesn't seem like it. And Brett, speaking of Neil Adams, obviously the comics world just lost Denny O'Neil, who is a very influential Batman writer and writer across the board, which is a bummer.
Yeah, he wrote the. Did he do Nightfall?
Yes, I think so. Yes, he did. Yeah.
And did he do the the first Azrael series?
I believe
Joe Quesada?
I believe he did. Yes, I think Azrael is his creation. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah,
but.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I posted on Instagram. I wanted to say something, but I didn't really know him, and I always feel weird, so I just posted a picture of Azrael and quoted Paul Dini, who seems to have known him pretty well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm bummed I didn't get to meet him.
Yeah, great career, great writer. Moment of silence over. But yeah, this episode, there's some fun stuff like background stuff in it where I think who's that villain there that he's fighting?
He looks like Jeffrey Epstein.
Well, I was going to say I think he's modeled after Lee Marvin. He looks a lot like Lee Marvin, and he kind of sounds like him too. I actually looked on the credits at least on the episode. He's not credited with someone doing his voice.
Right.
I don't know if it's the same. Maybe it's the same guy who does the landlord's voice, which is Jeffrey Jones, the dad from Beetlejuice.
Oh, Lee Marvin. Yeah, that's totally him. That's the guy I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what is it about the guy from Beetlejuice?
The guy from Beetlejuice, the dad from Beetlejuice, does the voice of the landlord.
Oh, yeah.
And I wonder if he's not also doing Vinny the Shark's voice, because Vinny the Shark isn't credited with a voice in the credits, so it might just be the same guy.
Yeah.
But yeah,
he had a really unique face.
Yeah, it's a really unique face to draw on a character. He's only in the episode briefly as a red herring, more or less.
Yeah.
But yeah, this episode has a lot of I think it's more fun for the little side pieces than it is for the actual story they're telling.
Yeah, the A plot where it's him and Batman finding clues about this drug dealer is pretty run of the mill. Mm-hmm. The most interesting stuff really does happen with Batman and Bullock not getting along, and then with Bullock and his landlord.
Yeah,
I couldn't. If you asked me to tell you exactly what happened with the A story, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yes,
it's like I don't know what's going on because I already know the ending. I know that this doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I thought it was. I hadn't watched this episode in a very long time, so I didn't exactly remember what the ending was. So I thought maybe it was going to be a Murder on the Orient Express kind of thing, where it's like an inversion of that, where it's not that someone specifically is out to get Bullock, it's that so many people hate him that it just seems like everybody's out to get him. You know what I mean? Like they can't even pin it down to one person who has it out for him because everybody just thinks he sucks.
Yeah.
And that's why I was just gonna say that's why
it
bugs me that he doesn't ultimately learn any lesson or anything or double down, because the stuff that's really interesting, I think, are the little vignettes of watching him interact with these people and seeing how everybody thinks he's a piece of crap, and see how he acts because he is a piece of crap. Because the sequence with Summer Gleason, I thought
when he tries to put on the charm.
Yeah. And then after she stonewalls him, he goes and destroys her office. That's the kind of thing. Yeah, that's the kind of thing where for him, I can see that making sense as something to do in his twisted bad cop or questionable cop kind of mind. But then he takes no ownership of the stuff that he does.
Yeah. So if we had to quickly rewrite this, I feel like what we should do is it starts off with him getting suspended for something. And Gordon or Montoya or somebody tells him, listen, not only do you bend the rules, not only is internal affairs looking into you, but you're just rude, obnoxious. You've got no one to defend you. I mean, you need to take care of yourself, Harvey. I'm not saying you weren't once a good cop, but something's happened to you.
Right.
And they kind of laid it out for him. So he gives up his badge and his gun. He goes home, and somehow he calls Batman and says he needs Batman's help because no one in the police department can help him because of the AI investigation. So that would be a legitimate reason for Bullock actually needing Batman's help, because he can't really rely on any of his friends. So then you have this idea of Batman's working with this ousted cop, and Gordon maybe even doesn't believe in Bullock, but Batman maybe does. And by the end of the episode, the way that you would show Bullock learning his lesson or overcoming in some way would be he gets his badge back, Sure, yeah. Something like that. So you would have been able to do all the things that we like about this, but then it would have fixed the other things that we kind of have problems with.
Yeah, I think I would take the... I think I would end up doing kind of what I was just talking about, where there actually isn't somebody after him. It's and that's something Batman knows. So he goes to Batman. So he sees it seems like people are having it out for him, and he goes to Batman. And in the course of the story, they end up finding this drug dealer and taking down this guy or whatever. But that ends up being completely unrelated. And when he gets into Batman's face about, you never found the guy who was after me, Batman is like, there's nobody after you. This is just how you are. And so and so then he has he's gone through all of these little vignettes of showing the crappiness of his own personality. And then when he's confronted with that, he either makes a decision or most likely he probably doubles down. I think that's what happens, because otherwise you have to like commit to Harvey Bullock changing as a character, which is not going to happen. But like if confronted with that, he either makes some sort of like minor acknowledgement and then kind of brushes it off, or he just completely doubles down. I think that's an interesting story too.
Or he could do both. He could double down, but still show that he's grown a little bit.
Sure,
like,
yes.
Maybe Montoya is pissed off for a specific reason. And at the very end, he shrugs it off, doubles down, but then he actually does the thing that she was asking him to do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny that we watched this episode, because last night we watched the movie Black Rain, the Michael Douglas movie, where he's a New York cop who gets tossed into the crazy world of Japan in the 80s to try and take down a drug dealer or something.
I've never seen that. Is it worth it?
I don't think it's not worth it, but it's not one of the better films from either Michael Douglas or Ridley Scott, but it looks amazing, obviously. But the thing that's amazing is I'm watching this movie, and it's such a movie at the end of the rogue cop thing that started in the 70s and kind of petered out towards the beginning of the 90s, that I'm watching this just thinking, Michael Douglas is just a bad cop. He's not he's not involved in the story in any way that makes it like personal, at least until later in the movie anyway. And he ends up being sent to Japan, and he's doing all this like tough guy rogue cop stuff, and I'm watching it going like, all he's doing is making this way more difficult for the Japanese police than it needs to be, because he's like, stealing stuff from stealing evidence from crime scenes, and punching people in the face and stuff, and it's just not helping.
But doesn't he have a motorcycle in one part?
He has a motorcycle in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and that doesn't come up again until the last 5 minutes of the movie.
Damn it! That's the only reason. That's the only thing I know about that movie is the poster, and I thought, man, I'd see an 80s movie with Michael Douglas on a motorcycle.
Yeah, great poster.
I don't care what it's about.
Poster's awesome. That was a poster I saw in the video store for years and years and years, and I never watched it, but I thought the poster was cool. But yeah, it's a 2-hour movie that really could have been like an hour and a half tops, and it would have been great.
Oh wow, yeah, that's a long movie for 1989 or whatever.
But it's like you're watching this rogue cop character who is being nothing but unhelpful, and then ultimately at the end proves to have learned nothing. And it's kind of like, well, where does this? Can you still do a story like this at the end of this cycle without there being some sort of spin on it? And they chose not to do that. So seeing this episode right after that was funny, because it was kind of a similar thing where it's just Harvey Bullock being a shitty cop, and not people are calling him on it, and he's just not really recognizing it. Like, honestly, I kind of was siding with the landlord, because he's got this rent-controlled apartment, which is fine. I got no problem with that. But he's the only apartment in this seemingly nice building that is full of cockroaches. That's just bad for everybody.
Well, little side note here, everybody listening. Clay has a neighbor that he's not a fan of. Clay's kind of in a similar situation with one of his tenants.
Yeah, I haven't pushed that person in front of a train yet, so.
Not yet. Yeah. I mean, you pushed her mail on the bottom of the stairs or whatever.
No, I will not touch it, but we don't need to get into that. That's part of the problem, is that I won't touch it.
Well, I hope too bad. I mean, I hope she's not a listener of the podcast, but if you are, please leave a comment in the section below.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it.
I think the best thing we ever said about Harvey Bullock is that he thinks he's like Dick Tracy,
right?
But he's not,
right? And sorry, I was just going, and that's what I want. I think out of this episode is I want him to be confronted with the person he actually is.
Right. Yeah. That's actually what I was having a hard time thinking of what I would want to draw from this. And I guess my only answer would be I want to draw a comic that features Harvey Bullock, and I want to do a story like this, but I want to address the fact that he thinks he's Dick Tracy, but he's not.
Right.
But I don't know if has there ever been a Harvey Bullock comic out there? There must have been something.
I have to imagine somewhere along the way they did a one shot or something. Or a sub or an issue of Detective Comics. Well, I mean this one, I guess it's based on an episode of an issue of Detective Comics,
right?
So probably this one.
But he's never had his own series.
I don't think so. No,
because Commissioner Gordon did. I think because Klaus Janson drew it or wrote and drew it. I think,
no kidding.
Back in the 90s. But yeah, I don't think there's ever been, and why? Who would? And I would read that. I think that's interesting, but I don't know if there's a market out there for a title called, Batman White Knight presents, Harvey Bullock or whatever.
Well, I mean, that's sort of the. It's not specifically Bullock, but that's sort of the underpinnings of Gotham Central, right? Where it's how
he's not in it a whole lot.
Is
though.
he? I think I read the first trade. I know people love it, but it's just not something I kept up with.
Yeah, it is really good. I was surprised Bullock wasn't in it more. I thought he'd be a feature.
Yeah.
And it starts when he's already been let go. So he'll make an appearance every now and then, but he's not in it a whole lot, honestly.
Really? Yeah. That's kind of surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's like 15 other characters. Like each issue opens up with a lineup just so you can remember who everybody is. There's
wow.
a ton of characters in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably too many to keep track of, but if you're a crime junkie and you're into that stuff, then you're going to love it. Me, I like my stories to have like no more than 6 important characters if you can help it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I did want to mention, I've never mentioned this before, but for some reason it stood out to me in this episode. Whatever the sound effect is that they use for the sound of the Batmobile idling is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know what it is, if it's actual recording of an engine or if it's something they Foleyed and it sounds cool. It's just got a really specific, unique kind of sound to it.
Yeah, it sounds like an American V8 with a custom muffler of some kind. But it's funny because I guess it's a turbine at the same time, and a turbine engine does not sound like a V8 or any kind of piston engine. So I always wondered if like the Batmobile actually had 2 engines, one when it needed to use its turbine thrusters and one that was more like a V8 or something.
Yeah, they should do an episode about that.
Yeah, I know nobody cares except for me.
Well, that sort of brings me to what I was going to say. I wanted to draw because I thought that you were going to say this. The sequence where they take down Vinny the Shark or whatever his name is, unless I was not paying super attention, it looked like it took place in either a car factory or some sort of a place where they had an empty car chassis hanging from a ceiling. And,
they did, yeah.
And whether or
not
that's actually what it was, or if it was just a place that happened to have a car hanging from the ceiling, I was thinking that drawing a Batman fight inside a car factory would be really cool. I would hate doing it, but I think it would be. It reminded me of that scene from Minority Report.
I was going to say that. Yeah, that's a great scene, by the way.
Yeah, that's a great fight scene. And I was thinking about something like that, and I was like, that you don't really see. People don't like drawing cars in comics, so you never see stuff like that. But I imagine you would love drawing that.
I would. That should have been my answer. You're right. I forgot about that stuff. The funny thing is, because I just drew a scene in Plot Holes where the guys get into a DeLorean, and there's a huge garage. Like one of the characters keeps all these vehicles that they could possibly use when they jump from book to book. So he basically has like a Jay Leno garage just because he's kind of a gearhead.
Sure.
And once I finished drawing the DeLorean, which is actually a pretty fun, easy car to draw, then it's like, oh man, I got a bunch of cars in the background. Like, how much time do I want to spend on a 944 Porsche that no one's going to give a shit about, So I'll draw like a nice hubcap in the foreground or like an interesting tail, maybe a weird spoiler, and they'll just like, people get the idea. Like they know how I know how to draw cars. So at some point, this comic has to get finished.
Yeah. You got to put your energy into the DeLorean and then let people use their imagination for the background cars. Yeah. That's why anytime I draw people in a garage, it's always at night.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man.
With
there's
no
only
lights
so much
on.
information the reader needs, too,
Yeah. That's one thing that I'm super jealous of that I haven't figured out how to do yet, really, is, your card drawings are super technical. It's not that you don't know how to do what I'm going to say, because obviously you do.
Right.
But your stuff is usually super technical, and you can really see all of the ins and outs of the cars that you're driving, that you're drawing.
Yep.
I've always been impressed by people who can really get across cars with silhouettes and like heavy blacks.
Yeah.
Because it's really difficult to do, because you have to be able to get that the black shape that you're putting down to be recognizable as a car.
Mm-hmm.
And there are very specific, shapes and angles and stuff to make that work. And depending on how much information you put into it and whatnot, it can be very difficult to make that believable.
Right. You know who's really great at that is Eduardo Rizzo.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, really famous artist, a lot of good crime noir. He can draw cars. Like, he can draw whatever he needs to draw. He's amazing. But he also knows that he tries to limit the amount of detail he gives you, not only to save him time and energy, but just to create effect and create focus,
Right.
So he'll draw the shit out of one car just so, you know that it's a car, and then the rest of the panels will be suggesting the car. And I love less is more. I have a hard time doing it because I enjoy drawing cars. So if you just leave me, like me drawing a car factory, you might as well just make it my grave because I'm just never going to leave,
When someone finally decides to be the Salieri to your Mozart, that's how they're going to kill you.
Oh, man, that is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
Just me dead in a car factory, cover me with lime and just shove me into a hole somewhere.
The French curve. I use the French curve. No, not the French curve.
Can you see it now? Yes, I see it.
The fender. I see the fender.
They can hear the engine because they're so trained as mechanics, even though no one else can hear the engine. They can look at blueprints and know what that engine is going to sound like.
You turn the key and then bum, the engine.
Yep. Yeah, and then you try to seduce the other guy's wife and then change your mind at the last minute.
Yeah, that too. Sure.
Yeah, you burn the cross. You're mad at God because you created a mechanic better than you. I'd love to do a podcast about Amadeus someday. I'm pretty sure it's not on your list, Wes.
Yeah, maybe someday we can come up with an excuse to do that. We might be able to squeeze that into Real Ripe and Real Rotten somehow. We'll if we do like the movies of F. Murray Abraham or something. I don't know.
Man, I mean, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen about artists and their insecurity.
It's so good. Yeah, if you are a creative person at all and have interacted with other creative people, you identify way too much with that movie.
Yeah, it's the best movie I've ever seen about being a creator, and that's why I think it applies to our podcast. But yeah, we'll find a better excuse to do it.
Yes.
Other than an F. Murray Abraham marathon, starting with Last Action Hero.
Yeah, I mean, if we want to do Last Action Hero, Amadeus, and the first half of Scarface, I'm down for that.
He was in a Star Trek movie too.
Oh yeah, Insurrection. That's right. Yes.
That's right. Way too good for that movie.
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess we missed our opportunity because Wes and I already did that movie, but...
Damn it.
Yeah. Anyway, I think... what do you want to rate this one?
I'm going to go 3.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same.
Feel bad.
I'm the same. Yeah. I feel like I was hoping for a 4, but so I'm going to say it's like a high 3, I think.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yeah. But because it does have a lot of great stuff in it. The music is great. Those little moments are great. Yeah. I actually thought the animation was pretty good too. I thought Batman looked really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the backgrounds looked amazing. Yeah, that's what makes it a 3 is I'm sort of taking it down a grade because of the lost potential.
Yeah.
That's what annoys me is like that this could have been great and it's just not.
Yeah, I agree. So, that's going to do it for Bullet for Bullock, and we will take a quick break and we'll be back with the trial. All right, Trial. Story by Paul Dini and Bruce Timm, teleplay by Paul Dini, directed by Dan Reba. And in this one, Gotham's new DA, Janet Van Dorn, is out to capture Batman, but both she and him end up captured by some of Batman's main enemies instead. They are soon put on a kangaroo trial by the Joker, the judge, Two-Face, the prosecutor, the ventriloquist, the bailiff, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, the Mad Hatter, Killer Croc, the Scarecrow, and the Riddler, the jury, in front of other criminals held at Arkham. If the defense, Batman and the DA, can prove that Batman is not the cause of everyone's turn to crime, they will be set free. When the jury gives the verdict of not guilty, the villains have little intention of following through on their deal. The notes for this one are the voice actor for Scarecrow was recuperating from throat surgery during this episode, so his character has no dialogue. And this is the first instance of Harley Quinn being mentioned as previously being a doctor before the Joker.
I was going to ask that.
Mind. Yes.
Yeah, I had that specific question because when she mentioned that, I wasn't sure if this is the first time we've ever learned she used to be a doctor and inmate and this sort of deeper past that she might have had,
Yeah, I actually, for a second, thought this might have been because it opens with Harley welcoming Poison Ivy back to Arkham, and I thought, is this the first time that Harley and Ivy have interacted? But I forgot about that episode where she's trying to leave the Joker, and they hang out quite a bit in that episode. But
yeah, they do. And it makes sense. This is a Paul Dini episode because he and Bruce Timm, I guess, created Harley, and it's interesting that they would sort of start planting seeds to make her more legit by making her a doctor or whatever.
Yeah, it's instantly interesting too. Like it's a perfect little bit to drop in there, given the two characters involved and the setting that they're in, to make you go, oh wow, she used to be a doctor. That's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah. Like I want to hear more about that, and you definitely get around to it.
The other little bit of trivia is the actress who does the voice of Janet Van Dorn, or Janet Van Dorn, is that what it is? Is the daughter is Stephanie Zimbalist, the daughter of the actor who does Alfred's voice.
Oh, interesting. Cool. So a family of actors.
Yes, a family of Batman actors.
A voice actor. Yeah.
Oh, she's the girl from she's the female lead in Remington Steele. Not that anybody, like maybe 30% of the people listening to this know what that is, but it's the show that initially stopped Pierce Brosnan from being James Bond.
Yeah. I thought it helped him get that role because he's so obviously clear for it.
Well, no, what happened was he actually got the job. He was supposed to be Bond when Timothy Dalton was Bond, but the producers of Remington Steele wouldn't let him do it. Like he had been cast as Bond. They were about to bring him down to do a press conference to announce it, and the producers re-upped Remington Steele for another season, so he couldn't do it.
Those motherfuckers.
Yeah.
But I will say, Timothy Dalton is my favorite Bond.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, he doesn't get enough press.
The angry Cold War Bond. I think he's really good.
Yeah.
And I agree. He doesn't get enough love.
Yeah. But yeah.
Anyway.
Do you? I guess I'll just hand it over to you so you can make your case for the plagiarism.
Give it over to the defense, Clay. Give it over to the defense. So I watched this episode like a year ago, and I had it on in the background while I was working, like I tend to do. And I definitely stopped what I was doing and started watching a whole bunch of times. Mm-hmm. And I was stunned by how much I had lifted from this. And it wasn't on purpose. I think, so for example, the one that first got me was when they used the word supercriminal, which is exactly the word that I call them in White Knight. And I remember when I was trying to come up with a word for villains, I didn't want to call them villains and criminals. And I thought, well, what would police call them? And I came up with super criminals. And I was going to use either super criminal or hyper criminal. But I must have totally forgot that I had watched this as a kid, and it just laid in my subconscious. And, I can't be the first person to use the word super criminal in a Batman comic, obviously. But yeah, when I found that, I was stunned and embarrassed, and I was like, oh my God. So I started paying attention to the episode more and more. And like, there was just more stuff that had obviously influenced me. The idea of at the very beginning, Poison Ivy is arrested, but because she's arrested by Batman, who's not an officer of the law, she's sent to Arkham instead of Stonegate. And I'm not really sure the logic of that, but the idea that Batman is not a cop, so we can't just treat you like we normally can. Right. So it shows like the legal implications of being arrested by a bounty hunter, basically, or a vigilante. Yeah, and just the idea of the Batman creating the criminals or vice versa. I mean, again, that's not the first time. I'm not the first guy to ever write about that, obviously. But this episode really focused in with razor clarity, sort of like the beginning of probably what got me thinking about Batman White Knight. Because I would have seen this when I was 12 or 13, and I always remember this episode standing out, and I thought, man, that was such a great episode, and it had like no action in it. Yeah. To do a kid's cartoon that's basically a Law and Order trial, like who the hell would think that would be good? But it was.
Yeah. They really they really pump it up and make it attractive for the audience by having every single Batman villain except essentially the Penguin in it.
Yeah.
So you got plenty of stuff to look at, but at the heart of it is a it's interesting because I think the difference between this and White Knight, obviously, is that the part that you seem to really subconsciously or otherwise hook into is the beginning piece where Batman is being sort of, or where Janet Van Dorn is kind of railing against Batman and all of the damage that he does to the city. because the actual meat of the show is not about that. It's about whether or not Batman is the cause of the villains. It has nothing to do with whether or not the stuff that he's doing is, obviously it's not legal, but is it even in the realm of appropriateness, you know?
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. So I think if this episode got me thinking about White Knight as a 12-year-old, it wasn't from the trial as much as it was from the opinion of the DA. Because the stuff she says is like, I want to work for a city that doesn't need Batman. You know, this is corrupt. Like, how could you fix corruption with more corruption? And like, a lot of her opinions are basically became the Bible for what I was getting at.
Right.
In Batman White Knight. So yeah, I'm not trying to hide it. Like I at the time I did not think that I had lifted the idea from anybody specifically, but as I rewatched this episode, I suddenly felt very caught, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't give yourself, you're not ripping it off. I mean, obviously it's an inspiration. People have gotten away with a lot more blatant referencing, let's put it that way, than this.
That's true, yeah. Like the creation of Deadpool.
Yes, yeah, that's a really good one.
A side note, Deadpool was sort of a ripoff of Deathstroke, and his name is even Wade Wilson instead of Slade Wilson.
Yeah.
And the idea of being a mercenary with a mouth, I mean, it's all there.
Yep.
Even the way that they look, it's like, crystal clear.
Yeah.
Like that is, get mad at him. Don't get mad at me for stealing from trial.
Yeah, let's hang somebody else.
This is how witch hunts work, man. You got to find somebody better.
Yep, just deflect and focus in. Yeah, you know, this one is just so. I really like this episode a lot. They come so close to Firelit Batman in this episode. So
I know.
close.
I had that as a note. Firelit villains, though.
Yeah,
you must love that, Clay.
That was still pretty good, but I mean, he was right there. He didn't even get like a half a frame or a frame or something. He's right. No. He's in the room, and they couldn't do it.
There's a fight scene at the end. The power goes out because the DA uses a batarang to hit a light bulb. So you have Two-Face holding a lighter. So everyone is just lit by. It's very crime noir. And the only time that anyone's not lit by orange is when Croc blocks the door, and then Batman knocks him over. And again, they could have had him fire lit, and they didn't.
Yeah. They were actively doing this to hurt me, I think.
Definitely.
25 years in the past.
I really loved the Joker in this. I thought he was hilarious. Yeah. I like the Tory wig, like the British judicial wig that he was wearing or whatever. I thought the part where he's in Harley's lap and she's sort of serenading him, and the DA objects because she's obviously trying to influence the witness.
Yes.
Or when when Mad Hatter asks for his comments to be stricken from the record, and Joker's like, someone's supposed to be writing this down.
Yeah.
And the thing that's hard to swallow in this episode is, would they even have a kangaroo trial? Like, this is insane. But the way the episode gets over that is it acknowledges that it's stupid and crazy. And Batman's response is, I know, but just play along. This is how these people are.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's. I would like to think that Batman villains are crazy enough that they wouldn't realize it makes more sense to just kill him.
Yeah.
You know, because it's this weird sort of like justification for their own existence to actually put him on trial. It's like, no, it's the right thing to do in this situation to at least give him a trial. When obviously they're completely nuts.
But the thing is, though, do they really think that he created them, or are they just looking for an excuse to blame somebody else for their problems?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Because the fact that they're going to kill him either way at the end is pretty clear. But I think they were not expecting Janet Van Dorn to make such a compelling case.
Yeah, that's the thing that I love is she actually wins the trial.
Yes.
Even Joker and even she and Batman are stunned. And then Joker's like, well, it doesn't matter. We're going to kill you anyway. But first we need to know who you are. That was the one critique I had for most of the episode was, why don't they just take his mask off? But they do address it at the very end, because it is a really great moment at the end when they're about to take his mask off. And then the lawyer uses this batarang that she's been, and the symbolism there is pretty clear, just like I was talking about in the Bullock episode, where she finally comes over to Batman's side in a way by utilizing his batarang. Right,
yeah. Because I actually, what I do like that they do is they take the anti-Batman lawyer and force her to come up with a defense in support of Batman.
Yeah.
So it makes her kind of rethink him a little bit, which is a lot of fun. I do wonder, however, what do you think Batman's plan was had she not been there?
I think he was fucked.
Yeah, he doesn't seem to. He doesn't seem to really be doing anything except letting it all happen.
Yeah. Maybe if they had a panel of him loosening the ropes, and she knew he was about to strike, but she was able to give him more of a diversion.
Yeah. Or I mean, realistically, it's probably they have a conversation afterwards, and Batman's like, I mean, I was free of that straitjacket the minute they sat me down in court. I just wanted to see what was going to happen.
Yeah,
like
I wanted to see.
It seems like a situation where realistically, he has something up his sleeve just in case, but he's just letting it play out. Yeah,
I do like that. There's a woman who saves him, which you get brownie points for that because I'm always trying to be a good progressive. And I like how she wasn't wanting to defend him at all, which lawyers are running into that all the time. I mean, everybody remembers the Devil's Advocate.
Oh yeah. Just watch that
part
recently.
Of being a lawyer.
Just watched that again recently. That movie's great.
Oh yeah, does it hold up?
I think so. That's also another one that's real long. It's like I think might be over 2 hours. It's a long movie.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in high school with this girl I was dating, and she liked it too much. It kind of bothered me. She was kind of messed up.
It's another movie that's unfortunately hampered by Keanu Reeves doing an accent he can't quite get the hang of, unfortunately.
What accent does he have?
He's from like Georgia in that movie, so he's doing
my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah, he's doing a southern accent that's never quite totally convincing.
Keanu Reeves' gift isn't acting. He's easy to look at. Camera loves him, and no one ever can get mad at him because he's Keanu Reeves.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And he picks amazing, outside of A Walk in the Clouds or whatever, he generally picks amazing projects.
Yeah, for the most part, he does pretty good. Yeah, they seem to always at least be interesting, if not good. You know what I mean?
You set him up with people that are really good killer actors, and then Keanu can just be Keanu, and he must know this. Like when they designed John Wick, hey, ring, ring, hey, Keanu. He's like, hey, bro, what's up? Oh, we got this idea. It's called John Wick. Gun, you there? Oh yeah, sorry, I fell asleep. What did we say? No, we got this idea, John Wick. But you have 13 lines to remember. You have to learn how to shoot guns and fight and stay fit, which we know you had. Oh, you like motorcycles, right? Right, great. We'll get these great actors to act off of you, and you can just kind of, blink, and breathe, and be good.
You don't even have to be convincing because we're gonna kill your dog, and that's gonna do all the work for you.
That's right. If anyone's fine by letting the dog steal the scene, it's Keanu Reeves.
Sure, yeah. He doesn't even have to be convincing because as soon as you kill that dog, everybody who's watching goes, all of these people need to be killed instantly.
It doesn't matter if it's overkill. These people all have it coming.
Yeah.
I love the third one, how the dogs always seem to make an appearance in every movie. Mm-hmm. And the third one had the dog like parkouring off of walls.
Yeah. Oh, I love the third one.
It was amazing.
I didn't particularly care for the second one too much. But the third one I thought was a really nice return to form because it was every one of those action scenes was just memorable and unique. It was a lot of fun.
I do wish they would use less CGI on things like the knife scene. Like I think it would get even more street cred if they actually did these. Well, they shot it old school.
That's the thing. Thank you for joining us for the John Wick podcast that we're doing now.
Sorry.
The thing that bugs me about the second one is they got too much into the weeds of this like hand-to-hand up-close CGI gunfighting. So it just feels all the same of like very weightless. My problem with John Wick movies is the gun firing is so weightless because it's all clearly CGI. So there's really, it doesn't feel like there's a lot behind it. So when he gets into the more physical hand-to-hand stuff where they do something a little bit more inventive, that's where it really starts to stand out, I think.
Yep.
Anyway.
I can't believe John Wick came up talking about this episode. I'm truly surprised. What else do I have for notes here? Yeah, I think that was about it for me.
I noticed that Croc really takes a beating in this episode. He gets beat up, then he gets blown up, and then he gets electrocuted.
This design for him is so much better than the season 4 design when they make him green.
Yeah.
The fact that he literally can't close his mouth makes him a mouth breather.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah.
And even when they animate him dragging Batman, he walks with his feet pointing sideways like he's gorilla from the way. Like they made some really good choices with him, and I really just don't like the green version from season 4.
Yeah, it's definitely a change that was unnecessary.
Yeah.
The one beat about this episode that I really like, that I think, so when we started this show, one of the things that we were kind of looking at it from was this angle of everyone seems to cite this not only as a great Batman cartoon, but the best version of Batman out there. And I've always been interested in that, and why is that? And I think this episode makes a really great case for why that is by the last line of the episode, which is Janet Van Dorn talking to Batman, and she says, I'm going to continue working towards a city that doesn't need Batman, and then Batman responds with, me too. I think that's like the perfect encapsulation of what Batman is and what Batman should be. Like he's not doing this because he likes it. He's not doing this for revenge. He's doing this because the city needs him to do it, and his goal is to not have to do it anymore.
So that's kind of the thing that I've been playing with White Knight is in every single volume so far, Batman has been ready to retire in one way or another. And there seems to be new reasons for him not to do it just yet. Even though with the ending of issue 2, like spoilers, everyone knows that he's Bruce Wayne, but he's not actually even a Wayne. So it kind of complicates things. So I just always felt like it's really interesting. Like I can get down with a version of Batman that is addicted to fighting crime and can't seem to give it up, you know? And he knows that it's not healthy and he wants to quit, but he kind of doesn't want to quit at the same time because he's been doing it for so long. Like how do you stop? How do you just, stop taking the drugs, so to speak? So even for volume 3, I'm looking forward to finding ways for him to like begrudgingly become Batman again and still be the awesome version of Batman that we all know and love. And then I don't even know how it's going to end, honestly.
Yeah. I actually, I've had some thoughts about that. Maybe we should talk about that off the air.
Yeah, sure.
But one of the things that I don't like, I've been reading a lot of Batman comics lately, mostly from I would say the 90s through the early 2000s, because I've been following the story of Stephanie Brown. And the thing that I really don't like is how around maybe the mid 90s, late 90s maybe, Batman gets really angry and really dark in a way that I don't entirely love. Because what I love about this show is they present Batman as both Batman and Bruce Wayne. So Bruce Wayne is a very different character than Batman. And even in this show, when they revamp everything, the modern or the version of Batman that Kevin Conroy has been playing for the past like 15 years or even longer than that at this point is Bruce Wayne and Batman are essentially the same character. He doesn't change his voice anymore. It's just the one Batman voice.
Yeah.
And I think that when you lose the light side of Batman, he just becomes more and more indefensible.
Right. Yeah, I agree with that. Or if you don't make Bruce Wayne light, you have to break the tension with a character around him. Like when I write Batman joking around, he's always the straight man. He has a straight man reaction, and Harley Quinn's reaction to him is funny.
Right.
So Batman plays a part of the joke, but it's like why Tommy Lee Jones is funny in Men in Black.
Right.
He's not actually making any jokes. He's just reflecting off of Will Smith, who's amazing at it.
Right.
And that's how I think Batman can sort of joke around. Like the one point in the previous episode where Bullock is going to push this button and Batman tells him not to in the Batmobile because it's the passenger ejector seat.
Yes.
You do see Batman smirk in the background. And as charming as that is, like I don't know if I would have written it that way. I would have had him make the joke, but then be totally straight-faced.
Yeah, that's interesting because I feel like I appreciate that element of lightness in Batman where doesn't necessarily always have to be the straight man.
Yeah. Because
I think the thing that I don't like that I feel like he's kind of drifted towards, at least in the stuff I've been reading, is this. He's the head, the patriarch of this Bat family, but he's so dark that everybody else only reacts to him and interacts with him by being angry at him or like yelling at him. And it's
you're right. It is kind of a cliche.
Yeah, it's like, and even the whole Stephanie Brown story, he very abruptly like fires her and tells her that she's not cut out to do this. And the whole time that she is Robin, he's being very hard on her and essentially telling her that she sucks at it. And they're trying to make it come off as like a tough love drill sergeant-y kind of thing. But it just really, it's just him being an asshole. Yeah. And that's kind of where I draw the line with my Batman, I think, where I don't mind him being strict and tough and having an edge. But when he falls into just being like an unrepentant asshole and people being like, well, that's just how Bruce is now, that's why I don't really care for that much.
Yeah, that's some criticism that I've gotten too, is I write a very gruff, man of few words type of Batman. But even though he's like that with Nightwing and Gordon and Batgirl to some degree, I do try to find the moments where he loosens up. Sure. And I have him. Like Harley Quinn is his best friend in the second volume, and she's having normal she's not yelling at him or doing. You're right. Mostly when people interact with Batman, they're yelling at him or cautioning him or rolling their eyes or whatever. Harley is the only one in my book who really reaches out to him as a friend, and he responds positively.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a fine line. Like you don't want to do too much of angry Batman because he just turns into an asshole. But if you have him act like an asshole, but leave a flower for another character to show his humanity. Or put his hand on. Remember the episode with the baby doll, and she's trying to shoot him, and she runs out of bullets, and he like puts his hand on top of her head at the very end. Sure, yeah. Like that shows his humanity and that he cares, and those moments are so important to making it work.
Yeah, exactly. I agree 100%. Yeah, yeah. It's a fine line with him because it is very easy to drift him down into Shadowhawk territory. Not to bring that up again, but
oh, good. Finally, I can talk about Shadowhawk again.
Yeah. What would you?
Go ahead. What would you draw? Well, I'll ask you first.
I think you talked about it a little bit earlier, but the Joker is just the background stuff in this episode, specifically with the Joker, is so much fun that. Yeah. Drawing the Joker in all those different costumes, like the judge costume and then like the Irish priest costume, is a lot of fun. I think there's a lot of room in an episode like this where it's a lot of talking that you could have a really fun time with your background details and do some kind of fun gags and stuff.
I would love to do the Mondo poster for this episode.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mondo's this company that does like very limited edition, high end, very designy type prints that they sell like very intermittently, and then they disappear forever. They generally go with very clean design that you can see from 50 feet away. So like highly detailed art like mine isn't necessarily that their thing. But yeah, if they said, hey, we want you to do like, you could see the poster for this, like giant Joker head with the wig, gavel. You'd have like a taupey like design where at the bottom you have all these tinier villains that are lined up next to the trial. He's holding the gavel, and then in the middle is Batman, a blind justice statue somewhere in there. Like the poster designs itself.
Yeah, hey, I guarantee you, if you called them and said you'd like to do that, they'd probably tell you go for it.
Maybe we'll see. They don't pay very much actually, so I've tried to talk with them a few times, and they pay you by gifting you a limited edition amount of the prints that you can then sell.
Yeah.
So they sort of pay you by having other people pay you.
Right. Yeah. No, that stuff is a slippery slope. I spent a couple years early on doing sketch cards for tops and stuff, and it's the same thing where they pay you a $1.50 a card, and they expect a good drawing on these cards, and then you can do no fewer than like 100. So you're spending hours and hours and hours doing 200 cards at $1.50 a pop. And the upside is that you get returns that you can then sell, which is great unless you can't sell them.
Right.
And so when I started, the first series I did, I was working on Lord of the Rings, and it was great. The cards I got back, I made like $1,000 off them. It was awesome.
Yeah.
But then I did a couple more, and then that did okay. And then I did Indiana Jones, and then Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, and I couldn't give the Crystal Skull cards away. you know, because the
imagine
movie
why.
came out and everyone hated it, so I couldn't give those away. And it was the same thing where it just kind of devolved into I was doing cards. I was doing Star Wars cards, and Star Wars should be an easy sell. And I had these great cards that I was trying to move, and nobody wanted them. It was just it's
you know. Side note: I've had the hardest time selling anything Star Wars that I ever draw.
Really?
I don't know what it is about that IP, but my people are definitely into Batman, Mad Max, and some horror stuff. My people are not into Star Wars art, or at least the ones that like it can't afford to buy it from me.
You know, that's really interesting because I have a friend who does. He made like a good handful of years of his career just doing Star Wars art. They're
beautiful because you have some in your apartment, right?
Yeah, they're gorgeous paintings. He's doing a pinup for me in Bloody Hell too, which I'm excited about.
Oh, nice.
And if you can get in to the crowd of Star Wars collectors, those people have money and they will buy that stuff. But I guess it's just a matter of directing your stuff towards them because you know he goes to the Star Wars Celebration conventions with a limited edition print and just selling them at like $100 a piece, and he sells out on by like the second day, stuff like that. You know.
Yeah, you know, the reason that business model offends me, there's nothing illegal about that. As a freelancer, you, Clay, are totally allowed to do these posters for Mondo or do these cards for whatever they are. Mm-hmm. And if you don't want to, like, no one's putting a gun to your head. No one says you have to do them. And this company is being upfront about what the deal is. And where it gets me is they're preying off of artists' ignorance and their insecurity. Mm-hmm. The desire to try to be a professional any way you can. If you're not getting published in Spider-Man, bam, draw some Spider-Man cards. Technically, you're now like kind of a professional Spider-Man artist.
Sure.
But they're not paying you. Like, they're not assuming any of the risk. The risk is all on you. The time that you've lost, the loss of opportunity that you could have been doing something else, making money. That's what's so offensive to me. And what makes it worse for me is a company like Mondo seems to be pretty well funded. They were going to put on a comic book convention at one point, and you need to have like hundreds of thousands of dollars or crazy investors to pull that off. So with all that capital going around, if they have an office with 20 people in it, then I feel like they should have the funds set up to pay these artists what they're worth and not expect them to work for free. But in their response to this, because I have talked with them, and I'm really not trying to throw them under the bus, but this is
too late. The back wheels,
airing my concern
the
here.
back wheels just went over their chest.
There was a speed bus, so jump right over.
Yeah.
Up with that. Like their mentality is, well, we worked hard to build our company. We made Mondo a valuable brand. If like the value of working for Mondo is you get a Mondo sticker, you get a Mondo label on your product, and like they've struggled, sweated, and gone through lawsuits to become the company that they are. Mm-hmm. Why should they? Like, I get what their argument is, but I still feel like I prefer the traditional system where if you've got money, you should just pay the artists and not expect them to take the risks, because it does seem dishonest.
Sure.
And a lot of my friends who are really high-end artists do this stuff willingly, and even when they come out with like a unique sketchbook or art book and it's like $100 to buy and they're really sought-after items, even then they don't upfront them any money, which to me it's like, I have no interest in doing that, honestly. Good. I'm happy that both parties are happy. If artists are upset, and I don't really hear about it. Most people love Mondo, and that's great. But for me, I've always kind of had I've always kind of kept an eye on them.
Yeah. The thing that burned me when I was doing the sketch cards is at least for the big name ones. Yeah. It very much felt like it was you're working on Star Wars, so that should be enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's that thing where it's like, well, you're working on a big name property. You would think you'd be getting a couple extra dollars than you would somewhere else. But it's the argument. The argument is, well, you're working on a Star Wars thing. That should be enough, and also that should tell you that you're probably going to be able to make some money on the back end.
Yeah.
It's like, that doesn't. The promise of possibly selling something down the road doesn't pay my bills this month.
Right. Like, the value of Batman to me is I get to draw pages with Batman on him and elevate my career and sell that art for a higher product, for a lot of money. If DC was going to act like Mondo, they'd say, well, why don't you just draw it for free? Or we'll only give you a little bit, and then you're welcome. You get to sell these Batman pages, and we won't sue you.
Right.
Bam.
Right.
Because we have the Batman license. I would never work for DC if they did that.
Right.
That sucks, and that's basically what Mondo is doing. But they're doing it in short-term contracts intermittently with people. So, I don't know. It doesn't seem to bother anybody except for me.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to throw sketch card people under the bus, because there are plenty of people who do that and make a good living off of it, because they have managed to cultivate their own brand as, this person's doing sketch cards for this set. I have to get those, and I'm going to want to buy those because I love that person's art. That's great. If you can do that and it works for you, that's fine. But just on principle, it does seem a little bit like it's not the most
and
the best way
anybody
to do things.
And I understand the artists have made money and have these blank card companies to thank for it. But you were ask any of those artists, wouldn't you rather be paid by Fleer or like a legit, or Topps or whoever? I don't know who makes baseball cards anymore.
Yeah.
And you got paid like $300 a day for this, and then you also could recoup. Like, wouldn't you prefer to work with a more traditional company like that?
Dude,
of course they'd say yes.
That's who I was working with. That's who does the Lord of the Rings, Star Wars was all Topps. Yeah. So Topps is that's what the model is.
Oh, okay. Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Unfortunately.
Sorry, Topps.
Unfortunately. I mean, like I said, I don't want to begrudge anybody who is happy doing that, but that model is not for me.
So again, I had a friend who worked in San Diego as an artist, and he worked in an office at Topps or Fleer. I'm going to just assume it was Fleer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know who's out of San Diego, or if I even have the city right. But he would get paid like a traditional freelancer would get paid. Every time he put pen to paper, he would get paid by the hour, paid by the illustration, or whatever it was. So I just assumed that card companies operated that way. I didn't know that this was Topps who was doing it.
Yeah, well, what they do for these sets is they will commission paid work to the artists who are doing like the base card set, so the stuff that's being replicated and stuff. So like the just the general cards that you would get as part of the set on the checklist,
Right.
And so they're getting paid as any illustrator would to do a piece.
Okay.
The sketch cards are essentially, they throw out a wide net to artists. A lot of times they'll have like one or two big name artists who I'm sure they're paying more money to do a handful of cards. So these are all like subset special cards that you get like one every 10 cards. There's a sketch card or something.
Yeah.
And so, but in order to fill this out, they need thousands of cards. So they've got artists doing between minimums, I think, of either 50 or 100 in a fairly, depending on the project, it can be a fairly short turnaround time. But it's the kind of thing where you kind of have to do the math, the personal math, as to how much time of your time is $1.50 per card, plus the potential to maybe sell it on the back end to make more money really worth,
Right. You got to do a pretty clear, sharp benefit loss analysis or whatever.
There are a lot of
artists
people
aren't good at that stuff. They're not aware. Like, it feels good to be drawn on cards, drawing pictures of Spider-Man and be getting paid, but at the end of the day, you look at your paycheck and some of the Spider-Mans didn't sell, and you got to ask, like, are you really professional? Like, this seems like the bottom rung for a lot of people.
Yeah. And there are a lot of people who do really amazing. I've seen people do amazing work on these cards, and they have managed to elevate themselves into kind of like their own brand where their stuff is in demand. But that's not everybody's going to be able to do that, and or want to really do that. Like when I was doing them, that wasn't really what I was getting out of this. And it came down to it was a cost benefit analysis thing for me, where it's like, well, I don't love doing this. I'd like to do them as quickly as possible, and they're not selling even when I do put all of my effort into it. So not for me, I guess.
The closest I've come to something like this was actually working with DC, who I find they've been really great to me over the years, and I really have very little criticism of them, and not just because I don't want to rock the boat, but for real, like they've always been really good with this stuff. Although when I did do sketches for a Batman black and white statue, the pay is not what you think at all. I mean, if they were Mondo, they would say, just draw it for free. We'll make statues. We'll ship you 6, and then you can sell those and make your money back.
Sure.
They do pay. They only pay about 50% of what my normal page rate is, unfortunately. And I feel like they're going to make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars off of these statues. Like, I think they can afford to at least pay my normal page rate.
Right.
But they don't. And it's a different department. And, my editor doesn't have any say over it. It's actually through DC Direct or whatever they're called now. And part of the deal is like, listen, kid, people would give their left arm to have a Batman black and white statue. You're lucky you're doing one. You're getting paid to do it. You get to sell the original art after. You'll get to sell the statues. Like, maybe don't complain so much.
Right.
And they're right. So that was the closest I've come to a deal where I'm like, all right, I don't love this, but I get it. And I accept that most of the money I'm going to be making from this endeavor is going to come from the original art and from the statues that I can remark and sell myself.
Right. And, we don't have to keep getting into this stuff if you don't want to, but
No. Well, I did have one more comment to make about being paid as freelance artists. Because or I should say concept artists do not get paid as much as I thought they did these days.
Oh, I thought they got paid pretty good.
I got offered to work on a large Spider-Man movie in the next few years, and I was surprised by how little they paid, considering how valuable the previous movie was. And I wrote to my friend who does a lot of stuff for Star Wars, and he said the same thing. He goes, you're doing it. He did it because it was Star Wars. Yeah, they pay, but it's not as great as you think. Like, he would make more money working on comics, which he does. But he really enjoys the Star Wars stuff, and he loves the prestige of it, so good for him. But I was surprised because, I remember reading books about Bob Peak and these illustrators from the 60s and 70s. I thought I heard once that Sid Mead, who designed a lot of the Blade Runner stuff, used to get paid $5,000 a day for whatever he drew.
Yeah.
And that was back in the early 80s. And I'm not saying that I deserve that much now, but it seemed like people were happy to spend whatever it cost. The thing with being paid $5,000 a day is, sure, Sid Mead makes a lot that month, but then he doesn't have any money being made for the next 30 days because how many Blade Runners are they going to make that year?
Sure.
So you do, score for a short period and then starve for a while. And at the end, but there are photos of these illustrators leaning against Ferraris, which is why it stood out to me.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'm like, man, I wish I got paid like that. But sadly, Star Wars, even the hottest properties that are out there right now, are kind of dicking over concept artists because there's so many people that are willing to do it for free, And I get it. Like, as a capitalist, I get it. But as an artist, it bugs me.
I not being someone who's in that business, I don't know this for sure. But I do think there's also just the number of people that they need on these movies now is so huge, and also the number of people out there who are doing this stuff is so huge that it's kind of driven the value, not value, but it's not when Sid Mead was doing this stuff, you went to Sid Mead because you wanted Sid Mead designs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's, you go to Bob Peak because you want a Bob Peak poster. You go to Drew Struzan because you want a Drew Struzan poster. That's why these guys are pulling in the money, because their thing is what's selling the product.
And a lot of the Batman black and white statues people will buy even if they haven't heard of the artist. So it is kind of mixed whether or not, are you buying it because it's a Mike Mignola statue or because it looks cool?
Right.
And both in that case, because that is a great statue.
Well, I was gonna ask you. Maybe this could be the last thing we talk about on this, just because we've been talking about it for a while. Were you consulted at all over the action figures, the White Knight action figures that are coming out from McFarlane?
No, Todd reached out asking me. He and I are kind of buddies. I've never met him, but we'll talk online from time to time and on the phone. And I have a ton of respect for him, and I'd love to do a Spawn short miniseries one day, just as a bucket list type of thing. But he's always open for me to come and do some work on Spawn. And then he told me that he was going to be working with DC Comics. So I kind of knew about that before it got announced. And he was saying that he wanted to do a line specifically of White Knight action figures, which I thought was great. I remember buying my first action figures from Todd. It was like, what was it? Wetworks? Remember that book, Wetworks?
Yes, yeah.
that character Grail, he had this amazing mask before they ruined him and made him all blue. But I love that fucking character, and that was the first toy I bought from Todd Toys. So I was super excited when this came up, but I didn't tell Todd, hey, can I see them? Can I make notes? It's his deal. He's doing me a favor by making action figures. Like, I'm just happy to get some for free, honestly.
Sure.
So he didn't consult me or anything like that. Not that he even has to, honestly. He did show me some of the stuff as it was moving along, but he didn't ask my opinion, nor did I give it. And I think they look really great. I was impressed by how, especially the Joker figure, how great it looks where you can sort of change his flesh by adding like a Joker mask over the Jack Napier mask.
Oh, sure. I think it's a separate head.
It is it's just a face mask.
Oh, it is? Oh,
wait. I actually just gave some to my assistant because they finally got delivered, and I was checking them out, but I didn't open the Joker one. Shit. All right, maybe it's a whole separate head. But I think they look great. The one thing that I would have caught if they had talked to me was Azrael looks great. I love the sword, the fire on it, and they got the details of his outfit perfectly. But they did give him booties.
I did see that.
So he's wearing like elf boots, the kind that kind of roll over around the ankle. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm, I do, yes.
But I don't care. I mean, the whole thing looks amazing. And what are you going to do? Complain when Todd makes a thing of your drawing?
Right.
So I'm happy.
Yeah, no, they look really cool. I'm looking forward to I have the Batman and Azrael on order, so I'm looking forward to that.
Cool. I got contacted by a company in Singapore to do another statue last week, and I almost didn't respond at first because I thought it was going to be another like thing where they're not going to pay me anything. I just get the prestige of having another statue or whatever. Mm-hmm. But I started to look through their website, and they do like really high-end stuff.
Yeah,
the cheapest thing you can buy is like $500. The most expensive is $5,000. We were talking with the guy, and he's been really nice, and it's clear that he wanted to hire me because I'm me, and he wanted to get my take on it. Mm-hmm. So we were talking about. So I was like, all right, well, I really want to do Batman motorcycle statue, but I don't know when DC Direct is going to get around to it. And I know these things usually take like a year and a half at least to plan. So he spoke with his team, and they're like, well, this isn't what we were thinking, but yeah, why don't we do a Batman, your Batman on the motorcycle type thing?
Oh, nice.
I pushed the idea to him. It's like, well, can we put Harley Quinn on the back? And he goes, well, if we did, it would make it more of a collage, and we'd have to charge more, and I don't know if our customers would, so let's just start with the Batman. And we talked about the scene from Akira where he does that turn on the bike.
Sure.
So I'm thinking about doing that with Batman, so the cape is kind of going sideways or whatever, so you see more of him.
Nice.
But it's been really great, and they were asking me about price, and I was ready for them to say, we can only pay you $1 or whatever, but you get these great statues. And they agreed to match my page rate,
wow.
So I was happy with that. And I agreed to give them an extra 2 days of my time in case they needed, anything else, like free quick sketches, turnarounds, or like more details. And I even asked them if there was a way to get fingerprints onto the statues.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, because I use a lot of fingerprint rendering on my characters' faces and backgrounds sometimes, and I always thought it would be cool if they could like paint that onto Batman's face or maybe sculpt a relief a bit of it in there. And this company is interested in trying to do that, so we'll see how it goes.
That's cool. I'd like to see how that turns out.
Yeah, sorry. I know this is getting to be a very long podcast.
That's all right. I'm looking forward to see that. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, thanks, man.
But yeah, to wrap it up here.
Yep.
I'm
going to go 4. I'm going to go 4 on this one.
Did you say what you wanted to draw? I can't remember. That was like an hour ago.
I didn't. I would draw the Mondo poster of this
that's
episode.
right. That's right. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm on the fence between 4 and 5, honestly. I think I'm probably going to go 4 because I don't know. Maybe the chasing the dragon of the animated series 5 is just an unattainable thing. After there's like 2 of them, I think, so far.
Yeah, it has to be as good as Deep Freeze or whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
Yeah. Is this that good? Heart of Ice. Yeah. Is this that good? No, but I think it's comes pretty close. I think.
Yeah. It's a high 4.
Yeah.
I mean, it Heart of Ice has the heart to it, and this episode isn't designed to have that same kind of appeal. So this episode is pretty perfect, but even though it's firing on all cylinders, I just don't think it can be a 5 because it's basically a courtroom drama, and I don't know. It's hard to give that kind of stuff a 5.
Yeah. It's a very high concept episode, which is done very well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's missing that extra little X factor, I think.
Yeah.
So I guess it'll be 4s from both of us. Awesome. So that will do it for Bullet for Bullock and Trial. And thanks everyone for listening. If you like the show, you can give us a rating review on iTunes. That would be great. Find us on Twitter at Badass Podcast, BATTASS Podcast, or an email, thebadasspodcast@gmail.com. And next time we'll be doing Avatar and House and Garden, and I believe we will be joined by one of the backers from my Kickstarter for that one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking
he
to him.
doesn't happen to work for Mondo, does he?
If hopefully not Mondo or Tops, but anyway.
Whoops.
Yeah, we'll thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.